From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined with our guest super producer, none other than Gnomes Griffin. Most importantly, you are you. You are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know, and we hope this exploration finds you well. If you are in your own global neck of the woods, or if you consider yourself a tourist abroad. We've got a real one for you tonight, folks. A real weird one, at least.
It's a real one for the real ones out there.
There we go. Yeah, that's nice. Noel, you're a bit of a tourist right now.
How dare you? Yeah, I suppose you could say that. Yeah, I am on a trip to New York City, but I don't hang here like a tourist, or I'd like to think so, at least.
Yeah, you're a local now at this point, right? You know where to go, how to step. You got your Supreme hat. You're looking good. You're looking healthy.
I try to step right. Yeah.
So we all remember our earlier series on a concept that mystified us unanimously: diplomatic immunity. Part of that goes back to the idea that you might be walking around anywhere in these United States where we often record the show, and you say, I got a parking ticket. I have to pay a parking ticket. How do these swells and these posh folks never have to pay parking tickets? We got into this concept of diplomatic immunity, which became a two-part series, right? Like a 2-chapter episode. How would we explain diplomatic immunity?
Get out of jail free card, right?
Essentially, well, it's a very specialized position that someone who is working for a different country, operating in your country, wherever you are, they can have. They can have these special rules that apply to them, where all of the rules in that country where they're operating don't necessarily apply to them because they're special. And they can take things in and out of a country as long as they put it in the right pouch or the right bag, or it has the right numbers on it, which is really fun and special. And we got into it even further when we did, I think we did a third one, right, Ben, on yes. What do we call it?
Shadow diplomacy.
Shadow diplomacy. That sounds nice.
That's a great setup. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And thank you to everyone who reached out, including multiple tourism boards, in response to our episodes on diplomatic immunity. And as you said, Matt, shadow diplomacy. It's an ancient sort of patched together series of gentlemen's agreements or traditions, and they still play a role in the modern world. While we were delving into this, we alluded to numerous instances where some people will say diplomacy went wrong. So with that, tonight, we are exploring a specific case of a man that may be known to some. This guy is named Raymond Allen Davis. So let's pause for a word from our sponsors, and then let's introduce him. Everybody loves Raymond, except for, Pakistan.
Yeah, and many neighboring countries. And...
All right. All right. We're doing the break. Here are the facts. Everybody loves Raymond, right? Except for the countries that Matt mentioned just a second ago. Can we learn a little bit more about Raymond Davis?
We sure can. So first thing, Raymond Davis was not born wealthy. Unlike the OSS hires of the Golden Age, he was not an elite East Coast blue blood type of fellow. Instead, he grew up in Big Stone Gap, Virginia, which in his words was a blink and you miss it type town. Perhaps could be considered by some like a flyover country type situation. But not in the Midwest, but still similar concept. Coal country is what you might call it. Isolated in the mountains and to a large degree, very much hidden away from the rest of the world, both geographically and politically, and just really as an idea of a place that exists.
Yeah. And as we said, his family was not wealthy. They were getting by. If you look in certain places, you'll see that his father was a coal miner. You also read about a stint as a bricklayer, also about all of the jobs that his mother took on to support the family when his father got injured. And just, the struggles of trying to make enough money to sustain what you got, not trying to reach for anything huge and big out in the distance, right? Not the accumulation of wealth or something. It's let's get by.
Yeah. And these are fantastic points to bring up in the biography. So to be clear, this is not a situation wherein old Wild Bill Donovan drops by, Princeton or Harvard or something and says, who wants to have an adventure over there, with World War II? This is a kid. He's very much a child at this point who has a rough start. As we're saying, he is, by the way, an award-winning bricklayer. He won a competition on that front. And he's, as a teen, he's shoveling snow, he's chopping wood, all to make sure that his family can stay afloat. He has 2 siblings, a mother and a father. So there are a lot of people to support. And like so many other kids in rural Appalachia, he wants to see the wider world. And the best chance he has to pursue this dream is the armed forces. So originally, Raymond wants to join up with the Marines. Noel, can you give us an hoorah?
Hoorah, if you will.
Perfect. We did.
Let's also remember that he's a big dude. And Raymond plays football, he does wrestling, and he excels at both of those things where he's an imposing force physically.
The armed forces recruiters are not liking him for the Marines. As he says in his later biography, autobiography, the recruiters, get this, they wanted tall, skinny kids to be Marines. And this is a quote, built like a tree stump. So he is the opposite of what the recruiters have in mind. And initially they tell him, okay, we're not going to say no to any kid who wants to join up with the war machine. You are going to be what we call a 68 whiskey, a medic. That's a field medic. He didn't know that at the time. Ultimately, he refuses that and he becomes what we call an 11 Mike. That's an infantryman in the U.S. Army. So he gets shipped off to Fort Benning, Georgia. First time he's ever been on a plane. Georgia, farthest he's ever been from home. He's 18 years old at this point. The world is ahead of him. The horizon beckons. Fast forward, stationed in Fort Lewis, he's serving out the last of his 4-year commitment to the Army. And then he has this life-changing experience. Some special forces trainers go to hang out. And they have all the ammo, they have all the cool toys, and they have kind of a field trip. And they say, you know what? Let's teach you how to shoot these guns, right? Let's teach you, just a cool couple of moves. And immediately, this galvanizes him. It inspires him. And he thinks, maybe I can one day become part of special forces. It's a very difficult training regimen. The selection process is such that there's a high rate of attrition. A lot of folks don't make it, but lo and behold, Raymond Davis cuts the mustard and eventually becomes what we would call an 18 Bravo, a weapons sergeant. I don't know if we can express just how brutal this training can be.
Oh, yeah. This is intense stuff, for sure. I want to bring something up that occurred to him right before he signs up with Special Forces, which is interesting to me and feels like another one of these moments that occurs. He ends up spending a little bit of time right before signing up with Special Forces in Macedonia, which is, it's a country just north of Greece out there, Bulgaria, Serbia, right around there in that area.
Great
and
food.
he's serving as a UN peacekeeper out there.
Yes.
Which to me is the type of job that he's going to end up in eventually. Not exactly the same kind, but has a lot of similarities, I think. Right?
Yes, I agree with that. I see that as correct. He's an international man by various points. Macedonia is a fascinating country. It may be an episode in the future. I love that you're pointing that out. This experience running into some of the GWAT guys, George Watson, Special Forces guys out there in Macedonia.
Is that what GWAT means?
I take it to mean that.
Okay.
It's based on, it's lightly based on the career of the legend George Watson. So, as you were saying, Matt, this guy comes back and he is incredibly impressed with the caliber of character he meets in the Special Forces trainers, right? In this kind of field day exercise. And he signs up. There's a tremendously high rate of attrition. Everyone, by the way, forget everything you heard about like Apocalypse Now or the other war propaganda films. Everyone who applies for Special Forces, if they make that initial application and they fail the first time, they can apply more than once. Thing is, most people, if they can't get that mustard the first time, then they go back home. They don't want to do it.
Can't cut it, right? Can't cut that mustard.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Just so, and one of the most, think about it like grad school. One of the most brutal aspects of this training is something called SARE.
Heard about this recently in the TV series Lioness. They depict it pretty brutally. It is essentially putting individuals through the same kind of interrogation, torture, and absolutely brutal hazing type rituals as maybe would be done to prisoners of war or captured combatants, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Could you give us the full pronunciation? What is SARE an acronym for?
It is survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. People can literally die throughout the course of this training because of its incredible brutality. And it includes some, real Sophie's Choice, Kobayashi Maru type situations, unwinnable situations, forcing an individual to think on their feet and make some highly risky choices in mega clutch situations. These are accurate simulations of real world events where people are required to, or trainees are required to live off the land, attempting to evade very, very implacable and brutal enemy forces that are on their tail, and you will be captured and you will, to what I was saying earlier, end up experiencing something very much like what happens to actual prisoners of war.
The concept of all of this is to almost give somebody who's going through it the muscle memory of knowing what it's like to be either left behind when you're on a mission, or I think it is that, right? Like you're out there on your own. So something happens, now it's just you and the land, and there's enemies all around you, right? Like it's something that psychologically they're trying to instill psychologically for every one of these people, these specialists that they're going to end up sending out there as teams in case one of them is lost, right?
We love a familiar situation, right? We do not enjoy novelty, right? That's part of it. And the reason I wanted us to refer to Kobayashi Maru for any Star Trek fan is that is a climactic part of this sci-fi training, the unwinnable situation. As we know, spoiler for a very old sci-fi series, Captain James T. Kirk is the only guy who beats the Kobayashi Maru test originally because he changes the rules of the game. He moves the constraints, and that's also part of SARE training. It's weird, right? It's a strange thing to picture in any job, but it is a job, and it does mimic to high fidelity the experience of when things go wrong. To your point, Matt, muscle memory, familiarity. So during this training, Raymond suffers some pretty heavy damage to his right lung, specifically. It's 1998 at this point, but the full consequences of his injury don't come to bear until 2001, when that lung pretty much clocks out and stops working. He has a significant other at this point. They relocate to Lexington, Kentucky. He goes to Eastern Kentucky University. There are a couple of asset protection classes or courses that he's very interested in, but he's not a classroom guy. He doesn't want to be stuck in the stuck at a desk, right? He wants to be outside. His own words. So he rigorously trains himself back to health. And at every step of this man's origin story, we see a guy fighting against the odds and succeeding at pursuits the ordinary person may well find impossible.
Absolutely. And then, like everybody else, who joins the military, you either continue your contract, if you're in for a certain amount of time, you either continue it on or you're done and you leave. So he ends up leaving, I think this is in 2003. And he does what a lot of folks were doing in the early 2000s who were either leaving the military or who had been out of the military for quite a while. They join up with a very lucrative group, a specific group that we've talked about many a time on this show, known as Blackwater. And these are military contractors that are operating in all kinds of different places in the Middle East in the early 2000s.
Yeah, in MENA, right? Middle East, North Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Couple other fun excursions. They got a Dave and Buster's everywhere. This is familiar to a lot of us in the audience tonight. Let's dispel some myths from Raymond's own words. He argues a contractor is not the same thing as a merc or mercenary or a soldier of fortune. In his experience, every contractor, PMC, private military contractor that he's met, is working for, your Academi, your XE, your Blackwater, your Brown Root, or whatever. But they have all retained the ideological motivation of the United States global game.
Just like Wagner, right?
Just so.
And that's SEER training. I mean, a lot of that is, you can't really deny that it is indoctrination as well. I mean, that level of, intense hazing and brutal treatment kind of that's maybe meant to make this stuff acceptable in some way and also perhaps offer a helping hand at the end of it to get you out of it in some way, shape, or form. There is some psychological indoctrination going on there, wouldn't you say? That would be really hard to shake in one's lifetime.
I would say so. I would agree. ISI does something similar. Most modern nation states have some version of that shake and bake, right? And some non-state actors do the same, to be quite clear. For Raymond's perspective, every contractor he has met functioning under the letters of marque of the United States, they had a previous military career, and they are working to further that ideology, right? There are not in his opinion, there are not mercs who say, screw the US, give me $10,000 of Bitcoin and let's figure out this West African country together. That does happen, but those guys are not the guys he's talking about.
Sure. But we're also taking the perspective of a man who's been through the stuff we're about to talk about, right? Who has kind of been forced to play the role of pawn in large political schemes and diplomatic things. So, it's tough to know exactly what that's like and what you would actually put in a book when you write a book about your past life and everything that's occurred and all of that stuff.
Especially if you have a certain set of editors.
Oh yeah. Oh, and a co-writer. What was that? Was that dude's name? Storms Reback.
Yes. Yeah. Different from Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, different from Stormy Daniels.
Correct.
Interesting character on
Equally
his own.
scandalous.
Other books that he's co-written, like officially, And as we know, anybody who's got co-writing credits, like on Amazon, has probably written way more books. Just their name didn't end up on there. Somebody else's did.
Right. Yeah, we've been through the fire on that one together. The idea is that every contractor Raymond meets, per his own government-approved autobiography or memoir, they all want to function for the best interest of the United States, to quote, support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That is such a banger line. I don't know about you guys. It never gets old for me.
Have you ever thought about unpacking it? I mean, does it seem specific enough to you, or is there some kind of broad brush type language there?
Oh, it's totally broad brush. You nailed it. You know what I mean? Especially the folks who wrote this were clearly imperfect, and they were clearly and purposely vague, right? What is foreign in the 1700s? What is foreign now? What is domestic in the 1700s? What is domestic
threat?
Now?
Right.
Right.
I mean,
what is
come on, let's be
defense?
honest.
Yeah, we learned what some of those things mean with the, remember those Iraq War tapes and some of the things that came out via WikiLeaks right around that same time?
Correct.
Specifically with Blackwater contractors and the killing of civilians. It's scary stuff. And we're certainly not saying Raymond was a part of any of that specific thing. It's just there's a complexity to a military contractor.
Sure. Yeah. And we also call it the Department of Defense.
Yes.
Type. So 1010, no notes. This idea of contracting is, by the way, not an original pursuit. Contractors, civilians assisting in war efforts, which would be the technical definition, they're present in the DNA of the United States all the way back to the days of the Revolutionary War. A very tall, very unhinged ginger named George Washington was hiring folks on, to mainly to persecute for his cause. Civilians have always assisted. Raymond's career is a reflection of that. It took him around the world, especially in the wake of September 11th. We mentioned his time in Macedonia. We should also mention his experience in Afghanistan.
Ben, I couldn't find much on his actual time as a contractor for Blackwater in Afghanistan between 03 and 06. What did you find out there?
Oh, he's just having a grand old time. learning some. You should see Matt's face, folks. Learning some surveillance, some infiltration, some best practices, primarily in Afghanistan. At that point, we're talking about protecting arms of U.S. interest, right? So that could be individuals, that could be high value infrastructure, that could be, we'll leave it there.
Giant pallets of billions of dollars in cash that accidentally fell off a giant plane.
Counts as infrastructure.
Fell off the back of a truck. Yeah.
Right.
Well, so it's really interesting. We don't know a ton of actual detail outside of what's stated in the book there, but we do know in 2006 Raymond leaves Blackwater. He leaves the Middle East. He comes back to the United States, goes to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Even, his roots are in Virginia. His roots are, elsewhere, maybe in Georgia after spending so much time there. But he goes to Las Vegas and starts a private, I don't know, what would you call it? He starts a private contracting service as like a bodyguard service, as anything you might imagine is almost private intelligence.
Security consulting.
There you go. That's a good way to put it.
Where is it ever?
We've met a few folks who are security consultants who are ex-military who just offer those services to anybody who has the budget, who needs some security. Usually for moving a high-value person, just like he was doing in Afghanistan, or high-value assets, moving those things around. He's the kind of guy that would do things like check the surroundings of a meeting place, right? Or where a meeting's going to be held. It reminds me a lot of that character. Oh, I always forget his name.
Homer Simpson.
That's the one. Specifically, Homer Simpson backing away into the bush.
No, who is it? Who is it, though?
It's the character from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul who talks like this.
Armentrout.
Always.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Reminds me
that
of
guy.
Mike.
I mean, true consultant material, taking his, police training and then just, giving him a leg up in the world of crime. So I think that's an interesting parallel that you point out, Matt.
You can always tell those guys, no offense, some of us are listening tonight. We can always tell, dudes, it's not that you're mean or presenting something aggressive. It's the fact that you always, Gnomes, please beat me here. It's the fact that you always look so tired whenever something happens. And you're like, so there's probably a tracer. It's probably in the gas cap.
Remember the episode where he took the car apart entirely and then couldn't find it and then finally found it in it wasn't thank you. It was in the gas cap, spoilers. But it took him a minute to find it. But he worked his butt off to get there.
If I need a gun, I'll just take one of yours.
Take one of yours.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
the kind of guys who will have someone tied to a chair and roll their eyes and be like, my niece is real irritating. I didn't want to have to do this today. Okay.
Well, the folks at the CIA.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Took a little liking to whatever Raymond was doing, either during his service or while he was out there in Las Vegas.
Right.
And wasn't it right after this that he officially gets his green badge?
Predictable, consistent, delivers. We like those, right?
Well, and that just means that he's officially a contractor for the CIA, where he can go in and out of Langley with a special little green badge that's given out to these folks.
Yes, that is a real thing. And with that brief background, let's travel to Pakistan. We've given you the quick skinny on an accomplished, successful man. It's January 27th, 2011, right? So about a decade after the events of September 11th, 2001. January 27th, at this time, is going to be the day that changes everything and puts the world very close to disaster. What do we mean? We're going to pause for a word from our sponsors, and then we'll dive in. here's where it gets crazy. All right. Lahore, Pakistan. Cosmopolitan place, metropolis, right? It's long been considered the cultural capital of that country. Just like New York City, it's very crowded. Just like Tokyo, it's very crowded. It's also dangerous. As Noel said earlier, you got to step right. So onto stage walks our guy, Raymond. He's about 37 years old at this point.
Right. And he's a CIA contractor at this point, working with a team to safeguard U.S. functionaries from the State Department and USAID there in Pakistan and surrounding countries, most specifically and notably Afghanistan. And this is really, really important work. In most cases, these guys are, for all intents and purposes, ghosts. They're invisible. Attaches, perhaps some IT, consultants on board, attached to your local consulate or embassy. And they're not, typical soldier jarhead types out there knocking people around in Okinawa or Seoul, Korea. Instead, they are much more like herding cats, acting as shepherd functionaries, kind of continually assessing the environment around them, observing, making notes, familiarizing themselves with the region and the peculiarities of the regions, specific details and customs around neighborhoods or assessments around a particular mission in the hopes that the people that they are safeguarding will listen to their advice. This is always a bit of a dice roll there.
Well, and let's just put this out here to state it plainly. This type of role is not outwardly projecting, hey, I'm a CIA contractor. Hey, I'm working with the CIA. It's more like, I'm going to put my badge underneath my shirt or whatever it is that I'm wearing so nobody knows who I am or what I'm doing. But if I get stopped, I can pull it out and say, hey, I'm with the consulate or something like that, right?
You can always tag base.
Yes, but they are unassuming. If you encountered them, somebody like Raymond in the wild, you would have no idea what his job is and what he's doing.
I'm just a driver. You know what I mean?
Well, and you could say that, right? And maybe get away with whatever you're doing and be fine.
I don't think so with that accent. No, I don't think that accent would work.
In Karachi or something?
Yeah.
Yeah,
hey,
no,
governor.
But I guess my whole point is he looks like a civilian, essentially, walking around from a different country.
Mm-hmm. And he's not driving a fancy car. He doesn't have a suit from the high street. He's probably rocking the kind of plaid or flannel that you would see so common in the Pacific Northwest or in Austin, Texas.
And you can see pictures of his outfit.
You very much can.
Ben is describing.
Very much can.
You can see pictures of his little Honda Civic as well.
It's a white Honda Civic. Good cars. This episode is brought to you with in part with great disagreement from Uncle Sam. This is brought to you by white Honda Civics in Pakistan. So, look, this is a tremendously frustrating gig. You are out there telling very important people, right? Very ideologically motivated people at times, to keep their own heads on a swivel. You thought the Bellagio was hairy, which it is, right? Around 2:30, 3 a.m. local time. This is a different world, right? This is a world where someone may be bringing aid, right? Maybe attempting to provide medical care, and then they get popped, right? So you have to understand there is a very small margin of error, and people who are used to being treated as though they are important often lose their faculties for surveillance, right? That is just part of the gig. So a lot of folks don't listen to Raymond, right? And he and his team do their best.
Absolutely. A couple of context pieces here. We mentioned that he is functioning essentially for the State Department and USAID, the thing that just got almost completely fully shut down here in the United States. USAID is the arm that was, what do we say, guys? We say it the way they say it. They're providing aid to other countries. And what does that mean? Money. It means money so that certain functions can occur either within the government or for support structures of a government. And USAID, as a part of the State Department / U.S. government, we provide money to countries for things like stability, right? To make sure whatever governing party is in charge does some of the things kind of the way we would like them to do. Just a little bit, just enough, right? It's a nudge. But that money that's coming in from USAID is highly important, especially at this time, to countries like Pakistan, specifically to Pakistan.
Did you ever hear the old shibboleth that we used to go to often? Resources and inspiration.
Oh, that's
shibboleth?
good.
Yeah.
I don't know this one, Ben. Help me out.
It's where you...
It's like a shegoloth.
Yeah, let's shove it off. No, it's a word or a saying. It's a thought terminating cliche.
Oh,
That's
okay.
a shibboleth.
Like a
Resources
negative aphorism?
and inspiration.
Like an anti-aphorism?
You could always resort to one. Look, people are resorting to these ideological cliches or to these clear and present, from Raymond's perspective, to these clear and present threats. So this guy is driving around just like he's done several days prior, just like his team has done as well. And he spends a good deal of time in his autobiography talking about this Honda Civic. And Gnomes, we know you love when we bring up the Hondas. So
I'm a Honda guy. I think
you're a Honda guy. Yeah.
I made no secret about that. Just not the
I'd say
Odyssey.
you're fit.
Ben? Yeah. Out of respect to you, Ben, no Odysseys will ever be in my garage.
There's one bad one. There's one bad Honda.
Yeah.
Just the Odyssey that my sister drives. But we did have a whole conversation about Honda Fits, Noel.
Oh, yeah. I love a Fit. Yeah, I'm a Fit man and a CRV man.
For love of you, man. All right.
Buddy.
So you're welcome, Buckaroo. So everybody, please do avoid Honda Odysseys if you take nothing else away from this parable. The headline is this: Raymond is learning routes, right? Evaluating the streets. So this is not like driving a black cab in London. You can't just know the fastest point from A to Z. You have to know how that point or how that passage works at any given time, right? And so they're running the routes, right? And like you said, Matt, they're making it muscle memory. And the headline is this: both the nation of Pakistan and the nation of the United States agree on January 27th, 2011. Our guy Raymond is in traffic. A motorbike stops in front of him. There are two Pakistani nationals on that motorbike. One of them, per Raymond, raises a firearm, which he says indicates clear intent. And he's saying, like, there's one guy driving, facing away from him. The guy on the back is turning around. He's got that little telltale bulge, and he produces a firearm. He raises it toward Raymond through the windshield of that Honda Civic. Go time.
Yeah, Raymond reacts as per his training and shoots the men, who were later identified as Faizan Haider and Fahim Shamshad, also sometimes referred to as Mohammed Fahim. Fahim was 26, Haider 22. Raymond shot 5 rounds from his service weapon through the windshield of his Honda. Additional reports claim that he got out of the vehicle and unloaded 4 more rounds into the men as they lay on the pavement, mortally wounded.
Yeah, my understanding is that those initial shots through the windshield were at the person that had the gun, and then he got out of his vehicle and shot at the second person, who was the driver.
Running away. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when they when these two young men in their 20s were already incapacitated. Pakistani news sources say that he followed up, and he double tapped, essentially.
Well, yeah. Okay. So if we're putting Raymond in that situation, in that moment, when you see a gun aimed at you and you're performing those capabilities on the behalf of an intelligence agency / USAID / the State Department, you may imagine that those men are there to kill you, and that is their only purpose. That is why they're on that specific vehicle, that it can be a speedy getaway, and that's why they're so mobile, right? With a firearm like that. If you're in that position and you have that training, I imagine that is the reaction that you have. Take out the threat, right? The details, though, as this goes on about what those young men were actually doing and had been doing, like for most of that day and for several days, it makes it more complex, but it doesn't make, in my mind, it's weird. It doesn't make Raymond's actions necessarily wrong, except for the continual shooting after the threat is disabled.
Mm-hmm. Makes you wonder whether some sort of familiarity existed, right? Look,
Yes.
That's a great point, because at this instance, the public knowledge in Pakistan and the U.S., it begins to diverge, right? And these two countries are agreed that these kids are dead. These 20-somethings are dead. Raymond Allen Davis definitely takes photograph and video evidence of the scene. And while he's doing this, he is radioing the rest of the team for backup. They have, in my opinion, a slightly better car. Sorry to say it. It's a Toyota Land Cruiser. And these guys go cinematic with it. They are attempting to reach the scene immediately. And they're coming from a private residence on Scotch Corner. Again, Pakistan and U.S. media disagree about what the GPS evidence presents, which we'll get to. This Land Cruiser is super interesting if you're a traffic cop in Pakistan, or what they would call a traffic warden, just someone who has to, as you said, Noel, herd the cats of motorbikes and vehicles, because this Land Cruiser is rocking fake ID. It has false ID registration plates, and despite, that's fine out in the rural burbs, right? Out when you're trying to get past a checkpoint or whatever, people might not radio that in, but false plates are not going to help you in traffic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially if you're going the wrong way on a one-way street, right?
Right, yeah. So quickly, this Land Cruiser of invisible men becomes cartoonishly visible. They swerve over a grassy median and they blast through oncoming traffic. Picture literally every traffic scene you've witnessed in a blockbuster Hollywood film. They're doing that right now. And
let's remember, a Land Cruiser is a giant SUV. Like, it's a big ass SUV.
It's a chunky boy for sure, right? And we're in a land of motorbikes and honestly smaller, more economic vehicles. So this whale is swimming against the tide around these panicked dolphins, right? And these workday salmon, if we're going to spin that weird fish analogy out, sea analogy out. Anyway, maritime stuff aside, this is not the movies. This is real life. That Land Cruiser, which did have an excellent driver, it hits an innocent bystander by both countries' reports. It's a guy named Abdur Rahman. He is on a motorbike. And we have to remember that all those crazy chases you see in film are not like what happens in real life. In real life, people do die.
Absolutely. Collateral damage. And this is, takes what could have perhaps been a more contained situation and now makes it much more of a diplomatic crisis because Pakistan is not happy.
Yes. And while all of this is happening, there are two men shot, one man who's been struck by a large SUV, right? In this traffic, in this chaos. Mm-hmm. One of the men who has been shot is dead on the scene.
Yep.
One of the other men who was shot is in extremely critical condition, but still alive. And then the man who was struck by the SUV is still alive in critical condition. They are both being hurried to a hospital as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the closest hospital, which would be called Service Hospital. Fahim and Abadur survive long enough to get there, but they both die. And at this point, the crew in that Toyota Cruiser, they ghost immediately, and they are racing hell to pedal. Like picture a fire truck, right? Picture a fire truck that does not play the siren noise. It is racing to reach the safety of the U.S. consulate, and apparently they're throwing some stuff out of the window on the way. Yeah. They're dumping some things. Do we want to do a list?
It's a weird list.
It's a very weird list. Some of these things.
It's fetish. I like to bind. I like to be bound.
Oh, dear.
Oh, Dennis.
Oh, my goodness gracious. No, not quite, right? We're talking ammunition, battery cells, scissors, gloves, a mask and a blindfold. Okay, Ben, we're getting a little closer to what you're talking about here. A baton, a compass. So some of this is, kind of wildernessy, Boy Scouty stuff. And then some of it may be a little more sketch. And some other
yellow
items as
American
well.
spirits. No, I'm just joking.
No? Okay.
No.
I believe there was a punch card for a local shop, and huge tragedy. 8 of the 10 holes were punched, so it was like 2 sandwiches.
Oh man,
damn it!
What a missed opportunity there.
The weirdest thing, you guys, is that the folks, whoever it was inside this Land Cruiser, made a great attempt to get to where Raymond was in his Honda Civic. And yet they just decided to GTFO without picking up Raymond, which feels like a really strange move to me. I don't understand why you would just abscond like that after causing such a scene without picking up, what I'm assuming is your target, your objective. I don't know, your teammate. Yeah, your objective.
Yeah. Yeah, if we game it out, what most likely would happen in that situation is that they were responding to the possibility of a firefight, right? The possibility of other folks going on the scene, and then they got the order to skedaddle back. We know that Raymond, he was not abandoned by these folks. They're all following orders. Raymond also attempts to move. The Honda Civic has a cartoonish windshield at this point, but is still drivable, right? Because there is no bullet that hit the engine. He makes it as far as Old Anarcali Food Street. And those traffic officers, those wardens we mentioned earlier, they ask him to stop. They stand in front of the car. He complies. They bring him to the police. Maybe at this point we stop for a word from our sponsors and then get to the,
the fallout.
Yeah. And we're back. Now, Noel, earlier you said Pakistan is pissed. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, they're certainly not pleased. As I was saying, what could have perhaps been a little bit more of a contained situation has now become really messy, potentially. Pakistan is a government that has been put in a particularly tough situation because the Honda was found to have a handgun, a telescope, something that we're referring to here, Ben, as a shadowy GPS, not a brand, or are we talking about sketchy GPS type stuff? Okay, fair enough. Burner cell phones. We've got satellite phone, the kind of things you might find in a go bag, minus the loose diamonds. We've got multiple IDs and bank cards. Perhaps most disturbingly, however, from that perspective, is a camera with clear photographs of some stuff that Pakistan would prefer you not to know. We're talking images of military installations along the border with India.
And we're talking images that somebody took with this camera.
Like
Like
inside,
somebody had this
right?
camera and they were walking around military installations taking photographs of stuff, of our secret stuff. And who is this guy, basically, is the question. When you find that stuff in the you go, who the F is this guy?
I'm sorry, officer. I didn't know I couldn't do that.
Well, then you're free to go.
Oh, great. All right. 5 stars on Yelp for you, sir. So there's a side note here. That point about military installation surveillance and photography is key. Pakistan is a nuclear capable country, and it is very much like ex-partner angry at India. They hate each other. The border ceremony is amazing and worth your time. It went viral in the West several years back. They do not trust each other, and both countries are kind of frenemies with the U.S., and it's not their fault. It's based on U.S. actions previously. These are all rational actors.
Well, and there's lots of money getting pumped in to both India and Pakistan by USAID.
You guys like money? Let's
We
hang
have
out.
some.
Yeah.
We love money.
Never mind the camera. So imagine the relative you don't want to see at Thanksgiving. This is far beyond that. Do we want to talk a little bit, just for context, about India-Pakistan relationships?
They are not buddies. They're not buckaroos.
Well, yeah, and this is something we're seeing play out in the news now, like
For
this
sure.
year in 2025, where it's getting escalated. These tensions, these like hand with a finger on the trigger, just waiting for the other side to do something.
Powder
right?
keg type stuff.
Yes, and at this moment, we also have to remember that it's 2011. It's been 10 years since the September 11, a little less than 10 years since that attack. There are factions within Pakistan that are very much on that track of what George W. Bush would call, terror. But really, like groups who are down with, we probably should destroy America kind of vibe. That is not the governing force within Pakistan, because again, that force has those little strings attached with all that U.S. money and other stuff coming in. So it's almost like the tensions are ready to boil over from these other groups within the country, but it hasn't yet. So it's a delicate balance.
And just like the CIA historically at times in the U.S., the ISI, the Inter-Services Intelligence of Pakistan, is believed to be compromised in one way or another by ideological factions. This is, again, not a condemnation of these various intelligence services. I'm just saying, if you hang out at a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or a good dose of hot goss. That's for sure.
For sure. And so this is a pickle, right?
Yeah.
The media gets in front of the story. The West and Pakistan, all of the stands that still have something like a press, they are publishing about this, right? India is dining out on this. They kind of love it. And we have to remember that both of these countries, the United States and Pakistan, they have a deep investment in one another because of what you're describing, the war on terror. They're practicing Kissinger-level realpolitik. So Pakistan, in that case, in a zero-sum game, they want any possible negotiation leverage over their frenemies in the West. The media war begins. Uncle Sam immediately says, Raymond from Virginia, he's a diplomat.
Well, this is a real test of all the things we've been talking about, isn't it? Because they balk at that. The U.S. claims that he is, classified under the Vienna Convention and is therefore subject to certain, leniencies, privileges, let's just say dispensations. Pakistan disagrees, and legal arguments start getting into the mix.
Oh, yeah. Well, and let's not forget, when Raymond finally gets out of his Civic and he gets pulled over by those traffic cops, they're like, who are you? And they take him into the police and they say, who are you? And he says, I'm a consultant. I just work as a consultant at the Consulate General in Lahore. I'm a consultant. And he picks up his shirt. Remember we talked about having IDs and stuff under your shirt? Yeah. He picks it up and shows them. Yeah, that's who I am. I don't have my passport and stuff on me, but look, I've got this.
Got my little green badge. But he does not present specific diplomatic credentials. This is something different, right?
He's got a card, essentially, like our earlier conversations on diplomatic immunity. You nailed it, guys. He's got a card that says, call this person.
Right.
Yeah. So when the U.S. government says, oh, he's a diplomat, you're like, oh, okay. But wait a second.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. The U.S. government.
That's a sticky wicket. Cricket's very popular in Pakistan.
It is. So, you're right.
So the question becomes, is this contractor on staff, or is he a hothead employee acting on his own dangerous accord?
Right. Or his dangerous Civic. Sorry.
Right. No joke left behind. That was great.
Well, can we also just state, authorities are also trying to figure out who those young men were on the motorcycle, because nobody knows, right? Like, what were they doing there? Why were they there? What was their purpose?
Would it seem that they were there to take him out? It would seem that they were there to assassinate this man.
Private eyes are watching you.
I mean, did they not pull up to him on a motorcycle and draw down on him?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, good. That sure seems like what it seems to me. No, you're right, Ben. And you have a beautiful
Ben's just going to sing us songs about it. But here's the thing.
For the win.
The official story is that these young men were on basically a crime spree of some sort, a low-level crime spree where they're committing robberies. Right?
Yeah.
And they just happened to pull in front of this contractor's Civic.
Really? See a white guy, white Honda Civic.
I guess that's true.
Maybe
nobody's pointing the finger at something greater than that.
It's all about plausible deniability, right?
Yeah,
like
that's
every
true.
layer of this.
Yeah, that's true.
So Raymond and Uncle Sam, the Department of State, this, by the way, goes all the way to the POTUS. They argue this guy acted in self-defense. As we're saying, there was a street level crime spree. It could have been anyone behind that motorbike. This guy happened to have the education and muscle memory to respond to a threat. Pakistan's authorities disagree, and they say, no, actually, no, sorry, Uncle Sam, this is one of your guys, and this American murdered 2 innocent 20-year-olds in traffic, and then he escalated that incident.
Yeah. Let's also, gosh, there's so much context to this thing that happens, right? That's why it's considered one of those special moments that had ripples, like that were far-reaching and that you can still feel them today. Just before this, I don't know if it was years before this or months before this, the United States sent drone strikes to several areas of Pakistan. So within the country, there's already this resentment against the United States for using these machines to come out and do targeted killings or targeted strikes, or what I forget the words that were used by the Obama administration back in the day, but they were taking out specific targets with drones in Pakistan around this time. So this whole thing is almost seen as symbolic, right? Especially for the high level players.
Right. And this is the milieu when Pakistan and the U.S. are trying to publicly play nice
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot on the line. I mean, I think it was Pervez Musharraf was on the Daily Show around this time. Do you guys remember him? President of Pakistan, former.
Oh, sorry. Yes, of course I do.
Yeah. It's an interview that's worth your time. So
Agreed.
Raymond gets jammed up. 2 charges of homicide.
Yeah.
And the evidence is there. He did shoot these kids.
For sure. I mean, he's becoming kind of the sacrificial lamb in this diplomatic hubbub. The U.S., however, does pressure Pakistan to free him, though Pakistan initially bucks. And in later conversations, the kind that you might have at one of those out-of-the-way cafes that we described, Ben, where we're exchanging the face-down, cocktail napkins or whatever in that scenario from our first series on diplomatic immunity, Pakistan and the U.S. do hatch a deal. It was agreed mutually that these 2 kids on bikes were ISI agents. And the official U.S. story of an attempted robbery would prove completely or at least largely false, but potentially worthy of holding some water.
There was a lot of back and forth. There are high-level attorneys hanging out in Pakistan on the part of the U.S. attempting to negotiate to get this guy out of the country before charges are laid at his feet, before they're, officially going to trial for any of this stuff, before the S hits the F, or however that works. And
how does that work, Matt? Have you ever defecated on a fan?
Well, look, in certain situations that I can think of in the past, there would be a problem if there was a fan like in the vicinity. Oh, maybe. Well, guys, it really depends on what your diet looks like and if certain, bacteria finds its way. Yeah. Anyway, it's going really bad. But then there's this other thing that gets floated after the prosecutor gets switched out, which is an interesting thing that occurs. And you can look at various news sources, including the New York Times, to see like the strange ways that on the Pakistan side, the folks who were going to prosecute this person got switched out, and all of a sudden this new concept arises.
Well, it's an old concept. We have to recognize that every sovereign nation is entitled to its own judicial system. Pakistan, being an Islamic country, functions largely under Islamic law, which is where we see an ancient concept that is considered legal in this part of the world come into play. That concept is diya. The closest translation in the West would be something like blood price, compensation for the people that you have killed. And this is not unique to Pakistan. It's not unique to Islam. It may sound strange to people from the United States, but just because you're from the U.S. doesn't mean, you know everything.
Well, yeah. And just to clarify, when I say a new concept, what I mean is it wasn't being talked about as an even possibility for this specific case with an American who has killed 2 people in Pakistan who were Pakistani. It's
introduced.
Yes, it gets introduced as the prosecutors switch out.
So the United States pays something around 2.4 million USD. Under Islamic law, they pay this blood price. And so it comes to pass that on March 16th, 2011, Pakistan's judicial system acquits Raymond Allen Davis of every charge, of any charges. And they were really going to jam this guy up for multiple things, like even unto traffic violations. Like you're driving a car with a broken windshield. Screw you, man. Like all of this stuff, they wanted to put him under the jail, but this price comes in. He catches the next plane out of the country. And,
secretly.
Yeah. Well.
And he heads to Afghanistan, by the way, to get to the U.S. But the families that receive the blood money, the 3 different families, they are all secreted away as well.
Yes, and Pakistani politicians lose their careers over this, multiple. Some people are saying, no, this is stinky.
Yeah.
This is S hits the F, and I don't like it, and I don't like what it says about geopolitics. Boom, they get sacked. Other people say, yeah, this is good. You got to make it work. They get sacked. This is a absolute crisis for diplomacy.
Monty Python levels of sackings taking place.
Yeah, sacks all the way down, man. It's Saks Fifth Avenue right there.
No, exactly. And like you said, Ben, at this point, I mean, it's so stinky and sacky that the president himself actually is forced to respond. There's no way around it. This is potentially blowing up into an outright diplomatic crisis.
Yep. Absolutely. Let's also remember that this is now in February of 2011, that all of this is going down, where even the United States president is getting involved.
Right. So February is when it goes up to POTUS and Congress, right? March is when Raymond Allen Davis becomes free and has to escape. But look, for anybody in the audience, and I'm sure there are a few of us, and have adventures be safe, well that any time the president has to go in public and say some stuff to respond, to an incident, you're in trouble. You know what I mean? It's like being a second grader and you hear the announcements at school and the principal gets on the mic and says, also, I want to have a quick word about Noel Brown and Matt Frederick. Yeah, right?
I don't want to go to the office.
Right. There were some incidents at the neighboring high school, at the neighboring elementary school. It's just a bad look all around, and we, the public, will never know what got discussed in those back rooms.
No, we will not. We won't know the full story because it was really fishy. Something weird was going on. What happened 2 months later? Anybody remember what happened 2 months later in Abbottabad?
No comment.
The world's most wanted man was assassinated in a compound where there were stealth helicopters used.
No comment.
Where the CIA had been operating for, months and months and months trying to track down Osama bin Laden.
Via vaccinations. No comment. Oh my gosh, that sounded sketchy. Yeah, all right, fine. No, you're right, Matt. As usual, you are absolutely correct. There are always larger pieces at play. Yeah, and you're right. What we can say is that Raymond Davis is not some kind of supervillain. He's not some Dr. No. He's not some kind of James Bond. By his own account, he will deny, this 007 appellation that Appalachian that people put on him. He's a kid from Wise County, Virginia. In his perspective, he's serving his country. He never imagined that he might be the individual triggering such extreme events. But to Noel, your earlier point about powder kegs, right, and boiling water, it's fair to ask if something like this would have happened inevitably, right? Because the entire time this is happening, factions of ISI know exactly where OBL is. That's just irrefutable.
Yep. It was a delicate little game that was being played. Like, everybody knows that, to some extent, all sides know that there are Americans operating beneath the consulate or for the embassy who are inside the country searching for this person. And they have been for, almost 10 years. And
Matt's checking his watch.
I'm just saying, it's known. Everybody is just aware that this is happening, right? Because it's if you thought it wasn't happening, you're being naive on those levels.
We're here for the museums. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're big fans of architecture, and we like to see out of the way architecture. Yeah. I'm sorry, officer. I did not know. I could not do that.
Well, exactly. But the Americans who are operating in Pakistan know that the intelligence services there are keeping an eye on them.
Mhm.
So, and if they believe, like they had around this time, that they had located the correct compound where Osama bin Laden was hiding, you have to, that side is pretending like they don't know,
Mhm.
right? And then
Sure.
the other side is trying to figure out what each other know. It gets so complicated.
It's a weird, toxic relationship often with these countries, allies and enemies alike. To this very evening, we're going to hear multiple differing accounts of what is called the Raymond Allen Davis incident in the West. To our friends in Pakistan and points abroad, it's a harrowing parable about how no country should ever trust the United States. This country, the U.S., has a terrible reputation right now for sort of moving with the wind and the whims, which people don't like. I get it. You crack a deal with one person who is supposedly in charge of the country. 4 years later, there's another person, and they say, forget that other guy. Here's my weird thing. How do you feel about Honda Civics? And then you have to be like, I guess this is cool for 4 years. But to the United States, this is a moral play. This is the argument that if you send someone in, you make damn sure you get them back. And ideally, you keep that invisible. This is a case where the conspiracy was revealed.
Yeah, it was. I didn't realize, you guys, that the Guardian newspaper is the outlet that officially stated out loud that Raymond Davis was employed by the CIA.
Right. Yeah. They were first to the post on it.
That was February 20th, 2011. So like well after the incident and while he's incarcerated, while all of the kerfuffle is beginning.
Forces POTUS to respond. Yeah. The media pushed it. And the bag of badgers is apparent. Neither Pakistan nor the U.S. right now have come to a public agreement on this matter. Instead, both nations found an approachable stance, right? We made correct with Islamic law, right? So satisfying domestic population of Pakistan, if not the families of those people who were murdered, honestly. The U.S. individual got home safe. The U.S. individuals, I should say, because let's not forget, Davis was not out there as a rogue lone wolf. They got back. Doesn't always happen. Sorry, that's how the sausage is made. The CIA and the ISI, they reset their chessboard once again, and they look toward the horizon. And the great game continues as we wrap up tonight's episode. We went a little long, but thank you so much for tuning in, folks.
Yeah. There's more to this stuff that we were even able to cover. And this is a longer episode than we usually do on a single topic. But guys, look into this even further if you're interested in the ins and outs and some of the details and stuff. Just to recommend one source, Ben, you can tell everybody the book that was actually written by Raymond Davis. There's a pretty long New York Magazine article from 2013 titled "How a Spy Helped Turn Pakistan Against the United States." It's a pretty long read, but if you can gain access to that, we highly recommend it.
We highly recommend Mr. Davis's words himself, The Contractor, How I Landed in a Pakistani Prison and Ignited a Diplomatic Crisis. And I don't want to lose what we said there previously. Again, the CIA, the ISI, soldier on and continue. They reset the chessboard. They are looking toward a horizon, and the great game never stopped. It continues tonight. You can learn more, as Matt said. You can talk to us. Well, I know some of us are in the audience tonight who might be tourists, might be contractors, attaches, people who are fans of photographing museums.
Your name right now is Favorite Tourist, Ben.
Oh, that's a gift from some friends of the show. Speaking of, you can find us online. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can call us on the telephone. You can send us a good old-fashioned email. Where do people sip the social meds, Noel?
You can sip to your heart's content at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook with our Facebook group. Here's where it gets crazy on YouTube, where we have just so many videos for you to enjoy. On X as well, FKA Twitter. And on Instagram and TikTok, we are Conspiracy Stuff Show.
You can also call us at our number, 703-482-0623. Oh, wait. That's the Office of Public Affairs for the Central Intelligence Agency. Don't call that one. Call 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call in, you'll get a little familiar sound in your ear, a little music, and Ben Bolin, and he'll let you know that you've got 3 minutes on a voicemail. Give yourself a cool nickname, and let us know in the message if we can use your name and message on the air. And if you want to write to us with your words, why not send us an email? We are
the entities that read each piece of correspondence we receive. Be well aware yet unafraid. Sometimes the void writes back. Funny, isn't it, how a bunch of very small and subtle decisions, when added together, can end up having such enormous consequences? That's a line from Raymond Allen Davis. We'd love to hear your favorite quotations as well. Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.